Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Excellency Analyst Desk. We are hopping straight into game number 2. And Icarus, what really stood out to me from that interview was we heard Fugnugler talk a little bit about the early game mistakes that had cost them in weeks before. They're really looking for some consistency. No 3-0s through their season so far. What stood out to you during that interview?
I think I have to agree with that. A lot of it is just how DCA came to be is they have kind of an open format application where you have all these players coming together playing in weekly tournaments with each other that Fugnugler mentioned to me. I don't think we got to fit it into the interview. So a lot of these players don't necessarily play together very often. They've had a little bit of experience here and there, but coming together, as we saw in the last game, is really where they struggle a little bit. And, you know, DCA, they were playing the lanes phenomenally. They had a lot of great solo kills, a lot of outplay mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
But they did throw a couple of fights because they weren't always grouped together. They weren't always on the same page here. So Death Cards Academy, they look really good, and they're like laning phase is really strong. Their ability to outplay their opponents is phenomenal, but they're not always on the same page.
Yeah, we'll have to see if some of, I think, the mid-game calls, the mid-game fights are going to be cleaned up a little bit here in game number 2. Looking at the draft so far here, let's catch everyone up here. The bands coming through. DCA, a very similar approach as they had in game number 1. They got the dub, and they're looking to stick with their strategy. But Divine Ascension, Obsidian, Icarus, they wanted to take away the Zyra, still keeping the Bard away, as well as banning the Hecarim, and I got a feeling you're really excited about some of the picks coming through now.
I'm super excited because we finally get to see Galaki's Vayne. He must have heard me talking about it during the last Champions Select.
Oh, yeah.
Because he busts it out in this game here. It is going to be into the Rel Kaisa. So in terms of bottom lane matchups, it's also just a really nice lane for this Vayne to be picked up. And you have the tumble in order to dodge away from the shield slam or from the slam jam that Rel tries to bring. Very short range, slow moving, tanky support. And you also have a short range AD carry in the Kaisa. So it's going to be one short range ADC versus another here, and that's a great thing for Galaki because that means he gets to scale up into the game. And I mentioned it last game, he popped off on the Kaisa just a little bit.
Yes, he did.
I do think it's a weak champion still, and I think it was more circumstances and getting an early lead that allowed it. So this game around, when we have another super hyper scaling AD carry for Galaki, I think we're going to see him pop up even more this game.
Yeah, this is his comfort zone. We talked about a little bit during the draft last match how his Kaisa performance is the only one before this show match series was a little underwhelming. Only 4, 5, and 14, but last game was a huge pop-off moment. He's looking to continue his momentum by picking comfort. He's 4-2 on the Vayne pick with almost a 4 KDA. Icarus, I'm not going to lie, I'm expecting big things. How do you think it fares in this Kaisa Rel matchup?
The Kaisa Rel is a really good combination here. I'm curious to see where this Maokai is going to be going. We have a lot of really weird champions here because this Maokai could go top or it could go support.
Yeah.
So it really depends on whether this is a support Maokai. If it is, I actually do like that pick a lot here. You can pressure the Rel away from bushes. You're pressuring the short range composition that DAO has with this Rel Kaisa. And it really comes down to, I think a lot of it is going to be how they play the bottom lane. If it's anything like last game though, we did see that DCA just played laning phase a little bit better. We were getting solo kills in the top lane when it shouldn't have been happening. We were getting great ganks coming in by Sterling Archer, who has his hands on this Diana again. And this time around, we still don't know if it's going to be a Shen or a Maokai support, but either way, it's a great tanky frontline member that's going to be able to CC the Kaisa Rel if they ever try to go a little too far forward here. On the other hand, though, you got a lot of frontline members for DAO as well.
Oh my goodness.
It's just going to be a lot of beefy fights here.
Wow, the fizz for the fizz for Patrick Jones, my main man for Death Cards Academy, the man in the mid lane for them. The fizz was banned last game. This time he's going to be getting it. It looks like Warwick jungle for the side of Divine Ascension, Obsidian, Nico in the mid lane with Mordekaiser top. Icarus, what on earth is Divine Ascension Obsidian got in store for us for game number 2?
I have no idea. I don't know what to make of this composition. My mind is blown to pieces. My heart is shattered. I'm really, really hoping that we get to see a phenomenal play here. A couple of things I do want to note in regards to this composition. One, the Mordekaiser into Shen should be a Mordekaiser favored matchup. I'm going to hold my tongue on that because I said the same thing about Darius and Ornn last game. But it should be a Mordekaiser versus a Mordekaiser favored matchup. However, I do think that Nico is a very interesting champion here that is going to make things very, very difficult for DCA if this Nico gets a pop-off early game. It is an anti-engage style champion with great ranged pick potential, and when you're looking at the 4 melee and short range AD carry comp that Death Cards Academy have drafted for themselves, Nico has so much room to find a pop-off Pop Blossom that catches 3, 4, 5 members like we saw Sterling Archer get in the last game that could put in phenomenal amounts of work. So there is so much potential here for the Divine Ascension Obsidian squad.
So I'm curious, what are you doing a very different style of champion for him in this game? He's once again kind of finding himself in a bit of a counter matchup, but Mordekaiser are going to be impacting the game in a very, very different way compared to the Darius from last game. What are you doing? He popped off in the team fight, so I feel like that's where we got to think about when is his time to shine on this Mordekaiser. Who are you kind of envisioning him targeting on DCA? Because Icarus, I'm not going to lie, I don't like his chances versus Galaki Meep in the Death Realm.
I was going to say, you might think it's a little bit weird here, but Vayne is your last target if you're trying to get somebody from DCA because you're just sentencing yourself to a doom zone, basically. If you're Mordekaiser, you're going to get kited around. I honestly do believe that it's going to be Sterling Archer on this Diana. You don't want to allow this Diana to jump onto the Kaiser and Nico. You don't want the big pop-off ultimate. And if there's going to be anybody that's not going to be able to QSS, that's not going to try and mitigate that ultimate, it will again be this Diana. Fizz has the playful trickster. Vayne will probably pick up a QSS to deal with Warwick and Nico anyways.
Exactly.
So Diana's going to be the biggest target here for the top laner of Divine Ascension Obsidian. What are you doing? I want to know, Mac Dewey, what your opinion on both these team comps are, because I'm still trying to figure out who I think is going to win this game, honestly.
Well, it was Death Cards Academy who we were kind of talking behind the scenes during game number 1. We were watching the lanes kind of unfold, and there were just some solid skill gaps coming through, especially in the solo lanes. So I'll be really interested to see if What Are You Doing is going to be able to abuse his advantageous matchup in the top lane, if Void is maybe going to be able to utilize some of that range advantage. I'm leaning towards Death Cards Academy because I've got a good feeling that they're sticking in their comfort zone at the moment. I don't know if what Divine Ascension Obsidian have put together is enough to counter this composition, but they've also just got so many champions that I haven't seen in a hot minute. The Warwick and the Nico, I have no idea how they're gonna do. What do you think?
Even the Mordecai is just really a big surprise here. Maokai Fizz, like there's so many good, interesting picks here. I'm going to be honest, I still have to give this one over to Death Cards Academy just because I think the Vayne is going to have an absolutely stellar performance. As long as Galaki can stay away from Nico in particular, then I do think that we can see a pop-off game here for the Vayne. Kind of just wins the 1v1 versus Warwick, versus the Mordekaiser, versus Kaisa, versus Rel. The only person that she has to fear is the Nico getting the big burst.
I do want to point out, Icarus, even though it's the first time we've kind of seen Nico and Warwick in a while, it's not the first time Saturation and Void have taken these champions to the Rift. In fact, Saturation on the Warwick, he had a pretty good game. 1 victory, 5-4 in 14 performance. A KDA of almost 5. We'll have to see if he's able to back up that performance against Death Cards Academy. Nico, meanwhile, for Void, not his best champion. I'm a little worried about him going up against the Fizz. We'll have to see how that matchup goes. Void is 0-3 on the champion. Maybe it's a first time for everything, and we'll see Divine Ascension Obsidian find a win with this new squad. Keep in mind, game number 1 really close until that big Baron fight for Death Cards Academy. So I think everyone's got to buckle up for another very exciting second game for the show match series. Mid-League Week 5 action is going to continue here on Excellency Esports. Don't click out of that browser. Cam and Gunjan are waiting for you guys on the Rift. We'll be back in a bit.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We are here with Game 2 tonight. We have Death Cards Academy on blue side and Divine Ascension Obsidian on red side. Again, we have a very fun draft. I'm excited about this jungle matchup. We do have very similar champions. We do have that Diana again for Sterling Archer, but this time we have a Warwick for Saturation.
And I'm super excited to see this game number 2 because, again, in game number 1, Cam, we saw that Death Cards Academy got to kind of a sprint in the early game where Diana just kind of took over, was able to get the farm advantage and get really good ganks off, and Sterling was able to pick up a lot of advantages in the early game. And now we see, obviously, not the same Nautilus pick in game number 1, but we are going to be seeing that Warwick pick, and we were questioning it because it feels like Warwick does kind of similar things to the Nautilus, where he's a slow farmer, is not going to be affect the lanes as much. And so I know we were questioning it. What are your opinions on it?
I definitely think that it's going to be a fairly similar early game for Death Cards Academy, as they do still have the very strong early game of the Diana and the Fizz in the mid-jungle duo. It is definitely going to be very much faster of a clear for the Diana than the Warwick, which is why I'm saying it is going to be a fairly similar game where she's going to probably 5 camp to Warwick's 4 or 3 camp, and then they're going to be fighting over this top Scuttless. This time they are starting on the same side of the map.
Yeah, they are going to be starting on the same side, and they were able to establish some vision. They did end up getting a DCA ward onto that red buff, so they should be able to see that Warwick isn't going to be starting topside, so Diana will kind of have some knowledge on where the Warwick ended up starting, and it's going to be important because, again, these lane matchups, in terms of favoring, obviously in the game number 1, we had the Darius into the Ornn matchup, and we saw that Fugnuggler was actually able to get solo kills up there, and now that this lane matchup is a little bit more even, again, it is still favored towards the Mordekaiser, it gets scary because, again, Water is coming in as a substitute, hasn't played in the first 4 weeks, so he has kind of struggled in game number 1, and I hope that he kind of picks it back up going into game number 2, because he does have the pedigree. He played again in mid-league last season, so he isn't new to the mid-league format or to the mid-league competition, so I'm excited to see what he can do with this Mordekaiser pick.
Yeah, and this time he did opt to take that teleport instead of that ghost, so he does know that laning phase is hard, and it's still hard with that ghost, so this time he is going to be taking that teleport instead. He is still going to be useful later on in the game, even if he does get a little behind in lane as he did last game. This game, though, it does look like that Divine Ascension Obsidian's bot lane is a little bit ahead so far.
Yeah, Divine Ascension's Obsidian's bot lane is a little bit ahead, has the push advantage into the Vayne Maokai, which you kind of can expect because Kai'Sa does, with that Hail of Blades, gets a lot of priority just with being able to attack so quickly and get a lot of her damage out pretty often. In terms of the lane matchups, though, one thing that we haven't really talked about is this mid lane where Patrick might be getting ganked here from the Nico. Or the Warwick.
Patrick is going to get ganked by saturation, but it is so hard to gank. Oh my gosh, Fizz, but he's able to find the Q follow through on the Warwick. That's actually going to be first blood for this Warwick that we so doubted in laning.
And he kind of subverted expectations because you don't expect a Warwick to be coming out of the jungle at 315, but Saturation ended up skipping the scuttle in the top side, just opted for the mid lane gank, and Patrick was just playing a little bit over aggressive. Great gank by Saturation and good first blood pickup for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian. They needed to get one of these lanes ahead because in game number 1, you could see that it felt like every single lane fell behind, and Sterling Archer was just kind of able to take over the map after he was able to do his first full clear. So I like that they've kind of gotten to an early game lead, and I hope that they can kind of try to push it.
It's kind of about how saturation on this Warwick is going to be so hard to find a gank onto a Fizz just because of how far his E can last. It did get him back to his tower, right? But I forgot about how Warwick can literally follow him with his Q, and that's exactly what he did. He did have to burn his flash to get out of the tower in the first blood kill that he found, but he did get the first kill, and his Nico did get an assist, so she did also get a little bit of the gold as well for herself, just trying to early lead in that mid-jungle combo.
And it is going to be important to get Void a little bit of a lead in that mid lane because this is a signature champion for Patrick. It is his most played in ranked, and he does like to favor it. It has drawn a lot of bans, especially whenever they played against Fever, whenever they played against No Fear Wolves. So it is a champion that a lot of mid league teams respect. And so Patrick being able to get this Fizz pick does have a lot of pressure on him to really get and become a carry threat, as it looks like Saturation is looking for a gank top.
He is trying to find a gank, his second gank of this game onto Fug. It's already going to burn his flash on the Shen pick, and that's just going to be about it, as there is a little bit of a 1v1 in this mid lane, but Void does have that W available on this Nico.
And I like the trade from Saturation because he knew that he didn't have kind of the jungle speed or the clear speed to really kind of opt into that bot side. And with his bot lane getting pushed in the tower, he just opts to make a play top side. But during this time, Sterling Archer will be able to pick up that first dragon, and she is going to be able, or Sterling Archer is going to be able to get an advantage, especially in the early game. And the big boon that Death Cards Academy had in game number 1 was that dragon stacking objective. They were able to get on it really early and make it so that Divine Ascension Obsidian did have to fight them when they didn't have the items ready. In game number 2, I do think that their comp scales a little bit better, not in terms of the late game, but I think it spikes a lot better in that 2-item phase. So it's going to be exciting to see how they want to play around this early game. But with that first dragon being picked up for Sterling Archer, it is advantage to the side of Death Cards Academy.
Yeah, and continuing on your point of how they're playing game 1 and game 2 fairly similarly, their number 1 way that they got early leads for Death Cards Academy in game 1 was using that double teleport in the Baron pit in the bottom lane play. And this game, they don't have a single teleport other than that Channel, which I mean is sort of a teleport, but not really, right? So they have 2 ignites for both the Fizz and the Shen. So that is probably not what we were expecting to see in game 2.
Yeah, it's a great point because a lot of the advantages they got were from that double TP, kind of catching the team of Divine Ascension Obsidian out in these plays where they try to make a play bot side, double TP. They try to make a play onto the Baron, double TP. So now not having that resource, they're going to have to play around these objectives a little bit differently. But I do like kind of this double ignite setup because, again, Shen is going to be able to join in the side lane. And the big focus for the side of Death Cards Academy is going to be Patrick Jones as he goes into that 1-3-1 phase after the mid lane tower eventually breaks. Once Fizz gets into that side lane, Nico's not going to be able to hold him, and you know for a fact, wherever they send this Fizz, Fugnuggler is going to be ready to press that Shen ulti button almost immediately, join into that 2v1 state, and they're just going to try to build those side lane advantages. So, in my opinion, in this game, it's going to be Death Cards Academy who's going to try to split the game into that 1-3-1 style, while Divine Ascension Obsidian really do want to be grouping up with these big Rel and Nico ultimates.
Yeah, Divine Assumption Obsidian is looking for these late game team fights with that Magnet Storm and that Pop Blossom, as you were saying. But I mean, if they aren't able to find it, if they are getting picked off by the Fizz, by the Vayne in the jungle, assuming that one of them is able to find the lead, which so far neither of them have, then it's going to be too much damage for them to deal with in a team fight. It's very hard for Nico to find her ult in a team fight if Vayne does E her away. And this is going to be a little bit of a 1v1 in this top lane. Water already burning that Death Realm on this Mordekaiser, but he took so much damage from Fugnuggler. Again, it almost looked like a solo kill, but it wasn't quite.
Yeah, just not enough damage coming out from the side of Fugnuggler to try to get anything done. Saturation is going to be looking for a play down bot, but he doesn't have his ultimate up, so it's just going to be a kind of a clear onto that ward and try to get some pressure. But Patrick does end up fighting Saturation. They end up burning double flashes, but it is control for the side of Death Cards Academy.
Galaki trying to find a kill onto Saturation. They're actually going to be using the Shen ult in this dive, but it doesn't even turn into a dive as they just walk under the tower and decide they don't want to fully commit. So that was a Shen ult burned, as well as Patrick Jones' flash and ult. And the only thing they got out of it was Saturation's flash.
Yeah, they end up getting Saturation's flash as well as his Gromp, so it is going to be an advantage to the side of Death Cards Academy, but it feels like they went a little bit too quickly, and my mistake, Saturation picks up that Gromp. He says, my Gromp, don't you dare take it away from me. And the big thing is going to be, without that Shen ultimate up, they are going to be able to kind of draw water over when that Ocean Dragon does spawn in a minute and a half, so it feels like Death Cards Academy just kind of went a little bit too early, tried to make a play around bot lane, but they didn't have anything that Death Cards or Divine Ascension Obsidian wanted to fight over. So advantage to the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian because they end up drawing that ultimate without pretty much losing anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Divine Ascension finding a early gold lead in this game, which they weren't able to find last game, but I mean, their only gold lead is really on that Warwick with that first blood kill, and he's still 20 CS behind this Diana just because it's a champion diff, not a player diff at all. It's just Diana clears so fast because she's just so meta right now with her late buffs, and I don't think she's even getting nerfed on next patch either, so she's just going to be probably one of the best junglers on this and next patch.
Yeah, definitely a tier 1 jungler at the moment in the meta, and I want to see what, going back to the point about the dragon, I want to see what Divine Ascension Obsidian do to kind of set up vision around this dragon side. They are getting the wards kind of deep. They have the pink wards both in the river bush and in the mid lane river bush, so good play by Divine Ascension Obsidian to get control because they know that they don't want to be giving up those early double dragons to the side of Death Cards Academy and kind of fall into the trap where they have to fight around that third dragon around that 15 to 16 minute mark.
Yeah, Divine Ascension is not looking to really make this game any longer than they need to make it, as this Vayne is going to start scaling up, and she is trying to go in for this 1v1 against Risky underneath her own tower, but she's just going to get outplayed so hard by that Risky Kai'Sa ultimate there. Now she has to run for her own life as the two-man ult is going to come in. That's unfortunately going to be the flash missed from Rel. She does land a knock-up on the Cthulhu, but that is not the champion you really want to be going to. Nico is here. She does force the flash out of Galaki, and that is finally going to be a kill again, going over to Divine Ascension Obsidian. Nico picking up that one.
Divine Ascension Obsidian pick up the pick, and they are going to try to pick up the dragon, but it looks like Sterling Archer and Patrick have gone to this bot side, but we are getting baited into this top lane fight. There's a lot of things happening.
There is a lot of things happening, and Fognuggler is once again able to pick up the solo kill in the top lane. Always in a counter matchup, but it doesn't matter if it's a counter matchup. If he finds it and gets that again, solo kill.
Fognuggler in weak side matchups getting solo kills. It feels like a replay of game number 1. And with the pressure that Sterling and Patrick were able to kind of just bring down with their bodies, they weren't able to pick up Dragon on the side of Divine Ascension and Obsidian. And with the Rift Herald being dropped, now it's going to be more gold funneled into Gallagher, trying to get this Vayne further and further ahead, and it looks like they don't want to lose this dragon. And the big cooldown to mention is that now Fognuggler does have his Shen ulti available, so when this dragon fight eventually does happen, Fognuggler will be able to join. And Water, again, it feels like he's trying to make these plays happen, but Fug with this ignite was just able to very closely pick up the solo kill.
Yeah. And it does look like Divine Ascension is trying to set up this dragon, now finding a little bit of river control for themselves, clearing out some wards, but they're just gonna give it over once again as Cthulhu is walking up this river, trying to find any vision that he can. Patrick Jones, again, right behind him, trying to just get a little bit of control over this vision in the river so that Divine Ascension is not able to pick up the second dragon, stalling the game out.
And Cam, if you're the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, obviously you've given up the dragon control, and now at 12 minutes, death cards do end up picking the dragon. Where do you look to fight? What item breakpoints do you think are going to be kind of the big breaking points where Divine Ascension Obsidian finally feels like they're going to be able to fight over some of these objectives?
I mean, we're going to have another 1v1 in this top lane before I get to talk about this. Fognuggler, again, doing more damage to Water than Water even does to him. I mean, this is not what we were expecting from the Shen pick, as he has already finished his mythic, actually the first mythic on this map, if you count Diana not having her own mythic, as she did already complete an item, but it's not a mythic. So, I mean, if you are Divine Ascension Obsidian, I think you're trying to play around that Nico and the Warwick, as they were able to find those early kills and those early leads, whereas no one else is really ahead, and Water, in fact, is really behind in this lane against a Shen, which is not what we were expecting at all.
Yeah, he's behind, but it looks like Saturation's here to look for a gank.
Saturation is here again, trying to find another gank on this Warwick pick. Fognuggler,
oh my god,
finding a 1v2 kill onto Water.
Wow, it feels like you're not locked in there with the Shen. You're locked in. Are you locked in with me? Sorry, I'm messing up this analogy completely, but it doesn't matter. Diana
is going to find Saturation Splash out of him and does so much damage with that ultimate from Patrick Jones. Again, he's able to dodge this Pop Blossom from Void, as he does still have the E available, and he's just going to force both the Void Summoners out from both his TP and his Flash for really not much burn from themselves. And now they are potentially looking to die Void, as the TP is coming down from Watermelons and Watermelon. All right, that's going to be the Shen ult coming onto Patrick, just to make sure that he does live. And Fognuggler again, potentially going to look for another solo kill, because why not?
Yep, Fognuggler, again, are you locked in there with Water, or is he locked in there with you? Fognuggler is able to pick up solo kill after solo kill, regardless of the 2v1s. And again, the big thing that we didn't talk about that happened kind of in the background was that Gallagher and Ooh ended up picking up that bot lane outer tower. Again, it doesn't mean much because the gold isn't going to be the big thing. The big thing is that now they can rotate this Vayne and Maokai into the mid lane, and they can put Patrick into that long side lane. And at this point of the map, or at this point of the game, Void can't match him, Water can't match him, and so Patrick is just going to have kind of a free lane bot side. Or if he ends up getting matched up by just one person, or if it ends up being just one person holding him in that side lane, Patrick is just going to pick up the solo kill.
Yeah, Patrick might just find his own solo kill, as he is not as ahead as Fuyaz is. He has found 2 solo kills for himself in this top lane, and this Diana Sterling, again, he's found 2 kills for himself in this early game. He did get the first item in the game as well with that Gnasher's Tooth, and we're looking to see him use his early lead, unlike he did last game, for even more kills, as he did start to look like he fell off a little bit mid-game until he did find that last team-winning ultimate that he did last game.
And this is situations where I don't agree with the lane allocation for the side of Death Cards Academy. You have Patrick, who's so strong right now. Obviously, he hasn't finished up his first item, which looks like it's going to be the Gnasher's Tooth. why don't you put him in the long lane and force Divine Ascension Obsidian to match him up with one of the side laners or Void? Instead, they're keeping the Vayne in the long lane. She is going to be able to kind of just funnel in the farm, but you're not putting pressure on the mid lane outer tower, and you're not putting Patrick in the lane that he wants to really succeed in, which is that bot lane long lane. And so it feels like a little bit of a misplay from the side of Death Cards Academy, not utilizing the advantage they have with Patrick in this with this item and gold advantage, and just kind of keeping the lane state stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, they aren't using their current almost 3k gold lead for much at the moment, as they are about to give up the second Rift Herald of the game, unless Sterling is going to look for a steal, because of course he is. He has a little bit of caught out here. He has no teammates here. Then it's going to be the Pop Blossom coming out, and Nico able to find that shutdown, 200 gold for herself from Void, as well as able to pick up that Rift Herald. So this is a little bit of a gold lead now, almost. They are only 1k behind for Divine Ascension now, so they are looking to close this gold lead even more and potentially for the first time find a real gold lead.
And it feels like it's just a replay of game number 1, because again, Fugler getting solo kills on the top lane and Sterling getting caught out after 15 minutes. It just feels like we're in a little bit of a time loop. That's going to be my title for game number 2. Game number 1, Electric Boogaloo, almost, because Sterling Archer does get caught out, and that comes from the fact that they misplayed on the lane allocations. Galaxy and Uwu should have been mid lane, and at that point, with the man advantage, they could have tried to contest that Rift Herald. Instead, they were allocated incorrectly. Now they lose their jungler, give over the shutdown to Void, and now with the kind of the tempo advantage on the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, they'll be able to drop the Rift Herald and get positioning around this Cloud Dragon, that important third dragon objective that will set up Soul Point for the side of Death Cards Academy.
It does definitely look like Divine Ascension Obsidian is going to be securing the second dragon, but it is such a split fight right now. Saturation going into 1v2, but Void is here trying to support him. Cthulhu caught out in the middle of it. Saturation already dying, very unfortunately. Nice Magnet Storm coming out. No, so much damage though. Mordekaiser trying to find a 1v1 before he gives his own life. That's a double kill for Diana, and that is the clean ace for Death Cards, picking up their third dragon, Cloud, in this game.
And I be hyped, but I'm kind of clenching my teeth because I don't know if it's wrong of me to call a fight cringe, but that was one of the most interesting setups for a team fight from both teams, because it was a Galaxy flank from the Vayne, a solo flank, and Void tried to use his Nico Pop Blossom on the Diana and the Fizz. Two champions that are hyper mobile that can get out of the Nico Pop Blossom, and the fight was so separated out. For the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, you picked a Wombo comp. You picked the Nico and the Rel going in together, and then you have Kaisa flying in on the back line, Water ulting someone out of the team fight, and you just get a full team wipe. Instead, they just split up and they just took these small 1v1, 2v2 skirmishes, which Death Cards Academy is set up to win. And now we're at a point 19 minutes in where there is a 4k gold lead, but the bigger thing is that Cloud Soul Point will come up at 24 minutes. And again, it is not a dragon that you have to fight for, but with these increased ultimate cooldowns, you don't want to give Shen a Cloud Dragon. You don't want to give a Vayne a Cloud Dragon. And so it gets scary, and again, just a really awkward team fight for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, and that's my big point for them in this game number 2. It feels like they're not playing to their style or the team comp that they picked.
I definitely agree. It felt like neither team really set up for the dragon. They both kind of walked into the river 10 seconds before it spawned, and then just suddenly started fighting each other no matter where they were. Some people were bot river, some people were mid river, and some people were top river, and it didn't really matter. Death Cards did find the clean 5-0 in the fight, as well as that dragon. So they are sitting at, like you said, around 6k gold lead at this point. And if you thought that fight was scary from Death Cards, the Diana and the Fizz didn't have their mythics. They were only sitting on that Gnasher's Tooth. So next fight, they are both going to have 2 items each, one of which will finally be that mythic. And we're going to have yet another 1v1 in this top lane. Fugnuggler looking like he's going to win it, but in the mid lane, Risky's finding a solo kill onto Jones right before he gives his own life over to Sterling, doing so much damage on the Diana. Find the flash ult, but no damage. Cthulhu is not there. No mana on this Maokai. He just has to watch his team die, try to walk away, as in this top lane, we were able to catch Fugnuggler with another solo kill onto Water, and that is going to be the 3-for-4 ace. Well, not ace, but 3-for-4 team fight in the favor of Death Cards.
and fights all around the map, but Divine Ascension Obsidian do end up picking a little bit of an advantage, even though they end up losing their bot lane inner tower. And again, I want to harp on this point. Death Cards Academy is in the lead, but they could be so much further ahead if they just allocated their lanes properly. Why is Galaxy the one split pushing when you have a Gnasher's Tooth Fizz? They're gonna look for Galaxy, and he might just get caught out.
He is a little bit cut out here. They are going to use the shuttle, trying to make him live just a little bit longer, but it's not going to be enough. His own shutdown going over to Nico is now Fuzz is caught out in the spot lane, trying to find a kill on the saturation before he dies, but that is going to be his own 150 shutdown going over to the Kaisa. Patrick Jones just coming at the very end of the fight to pop in and pop out. And we are going to have a pause, it looks like here, for claimed jungle lag from the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian.
And thank God we get a pause, because now I can flame Death Cards Academy even more. Again, they get punished for the fact that they have Galaxy in the side lane instead of just putting Galaxy and Uwu mid and putting Patrick in that long side lane. It doesn't make sense. It's one of the things where, again, Death Cards Academy is sitting in that middle section where they are trying to compete for that second place spot. I do have a little bit of a bug where my screen is not playing at all. Okay, that's fine. As long as everyone else is bugged out, I feel good. I'll keep talking. But again, Death Cards Academy is trying to break into that upper echelon teams like the Fever, the No Fear Wolves, and the CB Rushes. And mistakes like this, these are critical mistakes that they're making, where they're just lane allocating so improperly that it's giving Divine Ascension Obsidian a chance to come back into this game when they should have none. At this point, with how far ahead Galaxy is with the 2 items on the Vayne, he can just shred every single member, and with the protection that Uwu has, as we are going to be seeing another fight bot lane.
We are going to have another fight bot lane here. TP already coming down from Divine Ascension. So much damage. Oh my gosh, they're trying to do anything they can, but there is a tower there. Water doing, finding a kill onto Diana, and that's going to be yet another kill going over to Risky. Patrick Jones trying to find himself out, and he is going to go potentially back in with his ultimate. They're trying to do damage to Water, but it's not going to be enough to find that kill.
And it feels like Divine Ascension Obsidian, off the mistakes of Death Cards Academy, are finally finding a real foothold into this game, because this is exactly what they want to do. They want to group up as 5, and there's this big death ball comp where they lock you down with the Warwick ulti. Void just jumps in, and they have so much AoE CC lockdown that nobody on the side of Death Cards Academy can really play. If you're the side of Death Cards Academy, though, you can stop this. Let me propose to you a easy cure. This is like Sham Wow, but for team comps. What if you played 1-3-1 with Patrick in a side lane? What do you think about that? What if Vayne wasn't just splitting bot lane and was involved in team fights? What do you think about this? What a cure-all it feels like for this game. But regardless of the cure-all, we're gonna see another fight bot lane, because Cloud Soul Point is up right now.
It is up, and it does look like Death Cards so far is just going to take it without much of a fight from Divine Ascension Obsidian. They are trying to walk in this river, but the dragon is already secured. There's no fight to be had. Rel trying to find an engage, but there's no people to engage on. The Pop Blossom coming out from Void, but he is already dead. He does not do any damage. Saturation in the backline, doing anything he can before he's already dead to the Vayne. That is a double kill for the Galaxy on this Vayne. Nice clean ace. Only a 1 kill going over to Divine Ascension.
And a great team fight for the side of Death Cards Academy, and I want to praise them, but I'm still cringing my teeth because of just how they built this team comp out. Again, great team fight, because again, you can see that Void can't get into this backline. There's so many members that either lock him up, they just knock him away, and he just can't get these big Pop Blossoms. And at that point, it feels like Divine Ascension Obsidian just weren't together. Just Joshing looked for the engage, but everyone else was like, are we trying to fight? We just lost Cloud Soul. Should we look for something? Everyone was on different pages. And again, once everyone is in that weird skirmishing 1-for-1, 2-for-2 fights, that's what Death Cards Academy really want to do. And big pickup for the side of Death Cards Academy. And again, the game is close, and one Baron/Dragon fight just breaks it all open. It feels like game 1 Electric Boogaloo and game number 2, and now with a sizable gold lead of 7,000 gold, it should just be kind of a checklist for the side of Death Cards Academy to really close this game out.
It does definitely feel very similar, as I mean, Death Cards has now picked up their soul as well as the Baron, so we are going to be looking to have this possibly last team fight in around 4.5 minutes with that last Elder Dragon. And I mean, this is going to be very, very hard for Divine Ascension Obsidian to make a comeback from, as they are sitting at around a 6k gold deficit at this point in the game. And like you were saying, it is so hard for Void to be playing these team fights as Nico, as his team is not engaging with him. Even the Rel is engaging on her own and then dies before anyone else is even there. And Nico trying to engage into a Vayne is so hard for her, as she just gets eat away and then doesn't really get to play the game on her own there, as her ult just lands on her own team, which is not going to do a whole lot of damage.
And at this point, I do want to mention, again, for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, they do have subs in the top and support position. And when you do have to execute a really... fight around the mid lane, but
Josh coming out from just joshing, trying to find an engage, but he is already dead to Galaxy. Galaxy in the backline, trying to find this one-shot kill, already a double kill onto the Tice and saturation. Again, not enough damage from this Warwick. That is a clean triple kill for Galaxy. Basically a 1v3, as Cthulhu was just there to watch, and Void trying to do something in this top lane, but Patrick Jones is that split push menace of a Fizz, doing so much damage underneath the tower, finding that solo kill, as we are seeing Water doing in this top lane, or bot lane even, going down. And this is probably going to be this game 2 ending push from Death Cards Academy.
And Cam, it brings a tear to my eye. Finally, I got to see Patrick in a side lane. What a great ending to such a banger of a game where it was close. But again, Dragon fight into a Baron, and it is just already over. 26 minutes in, Death Cards Academy pick up the 2-0 lead in this set of 3 series versus Divine Ascension Obsidian off the back of great plays from Fugnuggler and Patrick, and the man in the middle, or the man in the bot lane, Galaxy, on that Vayne, having the 8-1 and 2 scoreline, just absolutely dominating. What a great game from Death Cards Academy.
I definitely agree. Galaxy played that late game so well, as excluding that point where he died for the Gromp in the bot lane. We don't need to talk about that. It didn't happen. And I mean, at the very end there, you saw just joshing, really wanted to find that last engage on the Rel. He did try and flash onto the Vayne, which I agree is probably the target you want to be flashing on, but it is so hard to find the engage on the Vayne. She's literally just going to E you and Q away, and you can't touch her at all. So we are going to be throwing it over to the analysis desk with Icarus and Mac, just to see how else they could have played this game too.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Excellency Mid-League Analyst Desk. Icarus, game number 2, Electric Boogaloo, as Gungeon was talking about it. Death Cards Academy able to pick up yet another win, and they are looking to potentially break this game 3 curse here against Divine Ascension Obsidian, who just haven't been able to really find any big team fights to go their way here during this series.
Yeah, and I really do have to give it up to just everybody on this side of Death Cards Academy playing those last 2 team fights really well there. It looked rough, it looked sketchy. I know Gungeon kept saying it was cringe here, but those were how team fights had to be played by Death Cards Academy, because they're playing a 4 melee composition that we talked about. They have the Vayne. They have to not group up, not allow this Rel-Nico combination to find the CC train that they're looking for in order to start off these fights. And a lot of that does happen in forms of really spread out, really wide team fight posturing from both of these teams here. And that's because Death Cards Academy were pulling Divine Ascension Obsidian across the map. They were spreading them multiple different directions around the river. The one time that we do see Death Cards Academy dropping a couple team fights is, again, we mentioned in game 1, we're going to mention it here for game 2, when they just refuse to fight as 5.
They just got, the Power Rangers need to come together for the Megazord to make it work. We did see a lot of split pushing Vayne. Gungeon talked about it just a little bit. Might have emphasized it a couple times. Galaxy Meep on this Vayne, despite being in the side lane, despite being very, very squishy, despite Shen being elsewhere consistently on the map, I thought it worked out pretty well. You know, he got a huge CS and XP advantage. He was able to stay alive pretty consistently. He only had 1 death, and Galaxy Meep really showed us how comfortable he is on this Vayne pick. He's now 5-2 on it. overall during this season 3 of Mid League. Icarus, what do you think about the split pushing Vayne here in game 2?
Like, it's the same way how I feel about these top lane matchups. It shouldn't work.
It shouldn't.
But it just does for Death Cards Academy, and I don't understand how they're getting away with it. Call it a player diff, call it whatever you will, but Death Cards Academy is making the split push Vayne work this game, and a lot of it does come down to the fact that there wasn't really anyone who could 1v1 this Vayne once Galaxy started popping off. You got the Phantom Dancer completed, you have the boots, the tier 2 boots, and you have Kraken Slayer, and that's all you really need in order to take a 1v1. We keep coming back to it. When Vayne died is when Vayne was pushed up too far in a split push and multiple members from Divine Ascension Obsidian collapse upon Galaxy. Yeah. And then we see the team fights start to crumble for Death Cards Academy. So I want to see Divine Ascension Obsidian continue to punish this, what I think is poor macro play coming from Death Cards Academy, because you shouldn't have that Vayne on the side lane. They shouldn't be able to get away with it, and they're able to punish it better in game 3. We might see Death Cards, or see Divine Ascension Obsidian, my apologies, pick up a win for themselves in this series.
Well, it would be their first kind of split series of the season. They've either gone 3-0 or 0-3 so far through the first 4 weeks of mid-league action. Icarus, I believe we do have another little fireplace conversation for the viewers. You talked to JDK, the captain for Divine Ascension Obsidian, a little bit earlier this week. Let's take a break from the analyst desk to hear your conversation with the Divine Ascension captain.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another interview here for Excellency Mid-League. My name is Icarus, and I'm joined on the desk by a fantastic member here from Divine Ascension Obsidian. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my man. Let's get your IGN, your role, and I kind of want to know a little bit about yourself. What role do you play on your team here?
So my name is JDK. I am honestly the support, but kind of just a mixture of whatever they need me to play. Right now, I'm currently a support, sharing time with just Joshing for now, and yeah, that's basically everything for me.
You just play the support role. Are you like a sub for the team, or are you on the mainstay roster here? If I actually pull up your guys' roster, looks like it looks like you are on the main roster. So like, how does that work between you and just Joshing?
So I think the first 3 weeks I played ADC week 1. The last 2 or 3 weeks I played support. And then like I'm co-owner of like DAG, so I help Void with a lot of stuff. So I mean, I normally like, just like fill in whenever they need me. But currently I have school ramping up right now, and decided to take a step back for a second. So Josh and whoever else is going to be possibly playing that support role is going to be taking over for right now.
Hey, well, at least you guys are able to make it work. You know, it's always important that you guys have subs, and that's why we allow offers, so you can switch people out. And, you know, speaking of your roster, I know that you guys are coming up from Light League. We had a little bit of a conversation off screen about how your guys' team got put together here, but the whole roster is coming up from Light League. You guys are going from gold into the plat level. How are you guys adjusting so far? And with your guys' main roster really coming over as a whole unit, you guys have experience playing together, and how does that really help you guys coming into a higher rank capped league?
Yeah, I think at an individual level, it's definitely a little bit tougher. Obviously, going up against top tier players with like really good mechanics, and they'll skill check you a lot. I definitely think with the amount of time you put together as a team, and like what we've been able to really practice on is like the macro stuff, the team play stuff. The shot calling is easier because we're kind of like we have like this like checks and balances that kind of go throughout the team. So I think over the course of like back to Light League when that group came up, and then adding me into the roster, and then all that type of stuff, we definitely got everything really checked out. We're just looking to improve week to week and be pretty formidable opponents to each opponent each week.
Hey, you love to hear it. You always got to be trying to compete as much as you can. I will say you guys have been struggling a little bit so far.
Yeah.
Not the shiniest record coming in after the first 4 weeks here, especially after coming off of a tough loss last week, 0-3 versus CB Rush. It is arguably the strongest team that you guys just lost to, so don't beat yourself up too much about it. But how are you guys doing at this stage in the tournament so far, knowing that it's coming off of that 0-3? Are you guys still feeling pretty good about things, or are you guys coming in with hopes that you're going to be able to make that playoff run, or how are you guys holding up?
I think it's really interesting.
Here for Excellency Mid-League, my name is Icarus, and I'm joined on the desk by a fantastic member here from Divine Ascension Obsidian. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my man. Let's get your IGN, your role, and I kind of want to know a little bit about yourself. What role do you play on your team here?
So my name is JDK. I am honestly
0-3 versus CB Rush. It is arguably the strongest team that you guys just lost to, so don't beat yourself up too much about it. But how are you guys doing at this stage in the tournament so far, knowing that it's coming off of that 0-3? Are you guys still feeling pretty good about things, or are you guys coming in with hopes that you're going to be able to make that playoff run, or how are you guys holding up?
I think it's really interesting because like the schedules are a little bit different now. You only get to play each team once throughout the entire season, so I think we've actually had a pretty unlucky drawing in the first half. And the games that we should have won, I think we did against the Gender Reformed. But then we played up against like No Fear Wolves, who's considered a top tier team, Fever, another top tier team, and then CB Rush. So I think that we're pretty confident when we get into like these lower middle, like to lower end of the top teams, that we can be able to get a bunch of wins and try to get into the 6th, 5th slot for playoffs.
Speaking of looking towards the future, you guys are going to be going up against Death Cards Academy this week. It is a little bit of a wild card team. Since we haven't seen a whole lot of them, we definitely haven't had a game of them on stream yet. So looking at that team in that series, how are you guys feeling? Because they are a more middle of the pack team here. Is there anyone that you guys are particularly worried about? How do you guys feel about the series coming into this one?
I think that we've scrimmed them like way before the season even started, like I think right before week 1. So I think people definitely overlooked them. I think after we scrimmed them week 1, we definitely had a lot higher respect for them, especially in the rankings, like considering them a top 4 team. And I think that yeah, they're definitely being a little bit slept on. I think the teams like CB Rush and them, they understand that these are like formidable opponents. And when it comes to what we're looking for in terms of like in competition against them, I think their bot lane is extremely strong. And I think that they definitely play really well towards, like their macro decisions, just really like working as a unit. So I think we're definitely going to try our best to be prepared for that type of stuff. We've been practicing pretty well this week. And we're just going to try our best to come back and win this series.
Yeah, and you guys said that you were practicing this week. It sounds like you guys get a lot of teamwork practice in together here. I just want to know a little bit more about your guys' work environment. You guys have been together for an entire season already. You're coming into this next season. You've picked up a couple of players, including yourself. How do you guys meshing together and fitting in using all of your personalities? I want to know more particularly, what role do you play on the team in terms of shot caller? Are you more of an outside of game personality? And how do you influence this team and bring your own personality onto the roster?
I think like we're definitely a really fun roster. I mean, I know like a lot of times like it's like like business pleasure type of stuff, like have fun, but also stay conscious of like trying to improve and stuff like that. I definitely think we're more of like a fun roster, and that kind of benefits us overall. I think we definitely have like fun time improving together. In terms of like my role inside the team, I think I kind of help shot call. I'm more of like an echo caller in a way that I kind of like, we'll listen more to our jungler. Our jungler does a lot more of the, early game, mid game, late game shot calling. But I think I'm more of an outside presence, I guess, kind of outside of stuff. I'm more of like, post game, pre game talks, just like kind of keeping everything interactive and fun. So that's kind of my role inside the organization right now.
More just for you here. Do you have anyone you want to shout out? Do you have any social media you want to plug? Anything you want to say here before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to say, go follow our DAG. I think it's DA Divine Ascension, like esports, I believe, on Twitter. I try the best to post memes on that stuff, and I guess just keep tuning into the streams, guys. Just try to support us. Be the best.
Hey, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, JDK. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you. And with that, let's get back to the games.